Welcome to Rich Mullins' Between the Songs podcast. This is the show where two Rich Mullins superfans break down every single one of his albums, and even more. We're going to take an episode by episode look at every single one of his albums that he ever put out. This is our inaugural episode, and it's going to be a good one, I promise. My name is Chris Marchand, and I'm with Post Consumer Reports. It's a blog and also its own podcast. And with me I have my co-host.
I am Joe Cook, and I am I guess you would call it the founder of the Rich Mullins Ragamuffin Archive on YouTube. And it's great to be here with you, Chris.
This is great. This is an idea that's been percolating in our minds for a little bit. The idea is every episode will just kind of zero in on one album, or maybe perhaps a project of his, because Rich Mullins, a musician, a thinker, a poet, a teacher, perhaps. He did a lot of things. He had a lot of irons in the fire, and he wasn't just a musician. And so there's going to be a chance to take a look at other aspects of his art. But what we're going to do is, along with looking at his albums, we're going to be able to interview some people as well and talk to some people that knew him and worked with him.
Absolutely, and I'm really excited because today we kind of get to launch this podcast in style, talking to one of our, I think, for both of us, our musical heroes, and a guy who was a longtime member of Rich's band, was a founding member of the Ragamuffin Band, Jimmy Abegg. And we've got a great conversation with Jimmy on the project that he's working on right now, the Be Gods, a celebration of Rich Mullins project, which is currently on Pledge Music. So we're going to hear more from Jimmy later.
Yeah, and there's a lot to this project. If you go to the Pledge Music site, I think it's even just Pledge Music /Rich Mullins. It's as simple as that. There's a lot to the project. There's a short documentary film. There's an album featuring old songs of Rich Mullins's that really have not seen the light of day, or at least not much of the light of day. There's a tribute album. You can even buy some original prints of some photography from Jimmy Abegg and Ben Pearson.
Yeah, they have the high quality replicas of Rich's original handwritten lyrics from the Jesus record.
There you go. That's nuts. Yeah.
Not to mention that Jimmy's working on what looks to be a beautiful fine art photo book.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the book. A book features some essays from Mullins' longtime producer, Reed Arvin. There might be more writing in there as well, but I know that Arvin is kind of the featured there. But also photography. It's going to be this beautiful book that you like, a fine art photography book. Now here's the thing I want to say about Jimmy Abegg. We'll get into talking about him later, but Jimmy Abegg, to me, represents perhaps one of the problems of Christian music, which is a vast majority of people go, huh? Who? And I'm like, okay, slow down here. This is Jimmy Abegg we're talking about. He's a prolific guitarist. He's been a renowned artist for years now. And yet, because he is within the realm of Christian music, people really don't have a clue of what he's done or who he is. I mean, a few of us do, and we're chastised. We're like, why would you know about these people? And I'm like, man, if this guy was in the secular industry, he'd be renowned as like a studio musician. Everybody would know he's the go-to guy. But because this is Christian music, it's a little bit different.
It's true. I actually remember, I've met Jimmy a few times over the years, and one of the times that I met him was in Nashville. This had to be about 15, 16 years ago, maybe longer. It was during GMA week, the Gospel Music Association, when they had their big week-long festivities they used to have down there leading up to the Dove Awards. And during that time, Jimmy was the imaging czar for Rocketown Records. Mm. And he was hosting, it was something called, I think it was called Midnight Movies. And he had went around and the entire convention with a camera and did these funny little movies. And it was kind of like, the Christian music version of Punk'd. He was kind of messing with people. It was really funny. And but anyway, I remember leaving that event, and because some of the videos were really a little out there, and this lady who was in Christian music, not from Nashville though, not in the Nashville scene. She was at the convention for something, and she's leaving, and she's just going, "What on earth was that? And who was that guy?" And I said, "Well, that's Jimmy Abegg," and she had no idea who he was. And I told her about his work, and she was absolutely floored that she had been up there spending an hour with this guy and had no idea what he had done, and, in Christian music.
Mm-hmm. So in the mid '80s, he was in kind of, I don't know if we'd call it a punk new wave band, electronica kind of band called Vector.
Vector, yeah.
That was maybe 2 or 3 albums worth. He kind of shared lead singer duties on that in that group. He kind of rose to prominence as part of Charlie Peacock's band. Him and Vince Ebo, Charlie Peacock, Vince Ebo, Jimmy Abegg recorded this really great raw live album. And so that's another aspect of Jimmy's career.
Yeah, we were talking about this. I remember off the podcast maybe a couple weeks ago about that video that they had put out. It was the Charlie Peacock front row VHS video,
yes,
which was phenomenal.
Does it exist on YouTube? Is it out there? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
So okay, let's say you're approaching this podcast and you're like, I like Rich Mullins, Jimmy Abegg. I don't know anything about him. Look up Charlie Peacock, Jimmy Abegg, Vince Ebo. Try to find this live video, and you tell me that Jimmy Abegg isn't one of the more proficient guitarists of his generation. Just watch his work on that video. This is from the 80s, I think, or early 90s.
It was like 89 or 90. It's way back.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go. That's Jimmy. We're going to get into him in a minute. But before we do that, this is our inaugural episode.